Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
what's going on?
I
Yo,
am living the dream.
hey,
There we go. Okay, there's some
the
issues.
squad.
There's some
Hello,
issues.
everybody.
So we
There you go.
should be. I think we're actually live right now. I need to go check on that stuff. The site's a little bit messed up, but uh, we're getting there
Yep.
shortly. Hey, look, everyone is here.
Hello.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you guys for all showing up this early. For some of you, it's early gamer hours. Sean, I know you're also. What
Yeah.
isn't Arizona a weird time zone too?
We're West Coast right now, during daylight savings, and then when it's the fall, we're with Mountain. So yeah,
What?
we don't do daylight savings time, man. It's an archaic thing that I don't know, man. I'm from Texas, so I was used to it, and now I'm 2 hours behind Texas. So
Okay, awesome. So we'll get started like a minute early here. Why not? So hello everyone. This is a panel of just college coaches talking about recruiting and that kind of thing. So I think what would be first pretty useful is for introductions. So myself, I am Keith Kennedy. I am the former director of Glenwood High School in Springfield. I'm the current director at Illinois Wesleyan University and also one of the board members here in the IHSEA. Let's go around, Sean.
my name is Shannon. I am the current head of League of Legends and head League of Legends coach here at Grand Canyon University.
David.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Kirk, and I am the Esports Program Director at Illinois State University.
Nick.
My name is Nicholas Chiu, and I'm the esports director at St. Louis University.
And then Alex.
Hey, I'm Alex Moore. I'm assistant coach at Boise State. I'm a former player that graduated and stuck around in the program. So
Awesome. Sorry, Kirk, there are no emotes in chat. If this was on Discord, we'd have emotes everywhere. Don't worry. So awesome. Introductions, and then if you guys are willing to give like a brief background on how you got involved in collegiate. I know Alex mentioned he's a player, but how the rest of you get involved? Let's go the same order again.
Sure, sounds great. So I got my first start by helping out Greg Adler over at University of Texas Dallas. He's a good friend of mine, and I was kind of just like a helper, helped out with the varsity and JV team over there, and then just kind of intermingled, networked, and everything. Found the GCU esports job on hitmarker.com, not sponsored by the way, but it was a good opportunity there, and meeting Albert and talking to him beforehand, it's a great environment over here at GCU, and so that's how I got my start, and here I am in 2021. That was about like 3 years ago is when I really started.
Yeah, and Hitmarker is like the place to go. Chiu, put that away. Hitmarker is the place to go for esports jobs, guaranteed. David?
Again, not sponsored, right?
Yeah.
So I got my start a little bit different than some other folks. I was actually working in higher education and campus recreation when I saw a position open up at the University of Akron a few years ago. I had done my master's research at Illinois State on esports and higher education, and that was right around the time that Robert Morris was officially starting to support esports with scholarships. So really unique time. And I was able to move on to Akron. And from there, we helped build what I would consider a pretty successful and comprehensive collegiate program. And then I was able to come back here to my alma mater last year, I guess technically January of 2020, to help build the program here at ISU.
Nick?
Yeah, so I started the St. Louis University Esports Club when I was a student back in 2017. And then within the 4 years that I was there, I connected my admins with people like Dan Clerky over at Maryville, which was a neighbor for us. And they were super excited. We even hosted an LCS Spring Split over at the Chaffetz Arena right next to St. Louis University. And at that point, they were all in for it. They really wanted to get involved with esports, and they saw that I was really dedicated and gave me the position straight out of college.
Alex?
Yeah, so I started out as when Boise State started their program, I started out playing on their League of Legends team. And then I graduated shortly after. I was on the team for about 2 years, and our head coach, Dr. Haskell, saw me and recognized, hey, this person is actually interested and responsible. They can be an adult. So he offered me a position right out of college, and I've been working here for about a year and a half or so now.
Awesome. And then I just fell into this job recently. I started at Wesleyan on July 1st, so not that long ago. But formerly, I started the Lemon High School team the second day I taught there, and ran that for 3 years. So kind of established out of the way. So the whole goal of this is to talk about recruiting and whatnot, because as we're all kind of aware, the recruiting pathway from high school to collegiate is non-existent, is the best way to put it. There's no pathway. It's just kind of scrambling to find someone. So the whole goal of this is to try to talk about recruiting in more of an organized sense. So if you guys would, and this can be anyone starting, anyone going, how do you go about finding players? Is there a certain way you go, like certain sites? I've heard like Be Recruited and things like that. Or do you just visit every school you can find, like certain coaches I know? Or so what's your strategy for finding people?
I can start with this one, so Sean doesn't have to go first every time. Our strategy is a bit mixed. Like you said, there is really no one answer or one place that everyone's conglomerating around. There are a few startups trying to solve that problem for us. I've not used any of those, so other folks here may have a bit more support with that. I know eFuse, they're also doing a lot of work at the high school scene with their pipelines and some of their combines. So that's something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on. For our inaugural teams, those of you who don't know, we're actually just coming up on a year. This August will be how long it's been since we've been an official program. So we traditionally look at the local high school areas, and oftentimes we utilize Discord servers. One of the first things I did when I got here at ISU was I joined the IHSEA Discord server to get connected with that high school community that's already being developed there. We have a pretty unique approach to our program where not only do we want to put forth the most competitive team possible for the university, but we also have other opportunities for engagement for players who may not necessarily be in the top 100 of gamers in the country or even in their region. So when we're looking at recruiting for our varsity teams, what I found to be the most successful is one, leveraging the connections that some of our players already had, but two, just looking at the amateur communities and the different the different game titles, depending on what those are, and being able to connect with some folks who have found success in those areas. I know Maryville does a fantastic job for League of Legends, putting on a combine yearly to get the top players in the world really connected with different universities trying to compete at the highest level. Something that we're looking at building out this next year, particularly for our club scene, folks who will still have an opportunity to compete just at more of an appropriate level with other schools around the country, is a recruitment and high school combine, leveraging our brand power and our notoriety as Redbird Esports and some of the success that we found at the varsity level and some of the anticipated success we hope to have this coming year to really try to entice and bring in some of the highest level players for every game title, so we can really do our part akin to what Maryville's doing for the league community, for every popular game title that's out there.
Awesome. So really kind of multifaceted approach to that. Anyone else want to kind of speak to how they do recruiting?
Yeah,
or find someone?
I actually wanted to kind of go off what David has been saying about the amateur scene. A lot of the big things that I think high schoolers kind of miss out on, especially when they're trying to achieve a higher level, is that multifaceted resume builder that they could give to show to these collegiate coaches and collegiate directors that they do want to be recruited. It's kind of like how a lot of when in high school you would do like a lot of volunteering and a lot of different clubs that you would do to build up your resume for colleges itself. You can build your resume of esports, your esports resume a lot more by just participating in a lot of amateur leagues, things like UPL, even just tournaments that allow you to be put in the fact that that you're competing against a lot of players that could also be in the collegiate scene already. And if you're able to show up really big in those type of leagues, then it's a lot more evident. It contraries to to actual sports in that aspect, in which you can't really compete against the athletes in there. You have the opportunity to do so at the high school level already. So you might as well try to put your name out there as much as possible to really get our eyes on you.
Yeah, I definitely take a similar approach to both what David and Nick were saying, though even recently, just within like the whole time during COVID and everything, I too have been keeping my eye on stuff like eFuse and those ones that can try to make the path for both collegiate directors and coaches and the students more accessible and easy. But I like directly like going like, there's even Discord servers that still exist that have like people who post like, hey, I'm looking to do this, or going on Twitter and just networking that way. And also what David said with leveraging your initial connections that you have, but just not only with your players, but there are good actors and good other collegiate directors who also they're like, hey, there's this guy that I have. I'll throw a shout out that Cubby over at Miami of Ohio recently got in touch with a guy that he can't necessarily help, but is in Florida and needs some help. So you just look out for other collegiate directors as well, because I think at the end of the day, we all just want to see get students in the best possible place that they can be to succeed, no matter where that is. Whether that's at, for me, Grand Canyon University, obviously we want them here, so just send them your way. But it's we want the best for all students involved, no matter what course they want to take in terms of like being a collegiate player, being a collegiate analyst, coach, and everything.
And something to really talk about with esports as well is just not just players, but also production side. And that's I think where Alex can talk more to is Boise State production stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of the people that we find for production is pretty a similar recruitment style for our collegiate teams. We just recently recruited a Overwatch player who's also incredibly talented on the production side. He actually made a kind of a hype video for our Mountain West finals series, and it's just incredible. And so we're planning on having him play and focus on production. But so part of that is just, I think it's a little more difficult to find these people that are interested in the collegiate scene that have experience with production. So a lot of it's more building people up who are interested in esports, but aren't quite ready to play on like a high competitive team. And so that's where a lot of people where we've connected with them is like they want to be within the scene. They want to stay connected. They want to learn about how to stay and how to meet with Riot and just kind of connect with all these large corporations. And so we'll find them like, hey, you're really talented. You're an awesome person, but what if we try and throw you in here? We think you do find a lot of success. And then we kind of are able to kind of build out a more rounded person. I know one of our people in production, she started off essentially not knowing anything. And she actually did a project for Garvey, who we saw in the intro panel. I think it was last summer, but yeah, it's a lot of just finding people that are interested in the spot and plugging them in and what they're interested in.
And one of the biggest things for esports as well is just being passionate. As long as you're passionate, you will find an offer somewhere for something, because people who are doing more production stuff and back-end work or club teams every day. Now, kind of bouncing off of that then is once you've found someone, recruiting process looks different for a lot of people. Because I can't just throw them $10 million and say, come to IWU. That's not how this works. That'd be fun, but I can't just do that.
I'm pretty sure it would work.
I really hope it work. So what does the recruiting process look like once you find someone?
So I can start this one.
Okay, yeah, go for it, Alex.
So typically for us, we'll have just kind of initial introduction, whether it's a player who introduced us or if they're from a combine or something, and we'll just kind of find out what they're interested and see if it's a good fit. From there, we like to try and set up a conversation with them and the ones that are really connected in their life. So a lot of times it's their parents or their grandparents, and just kind of try and make sure that this is a good fit for them. We get to know them and we get to know a lot more about their support structure and their family. And it just helps us kind of connect. From there, once we're assuming everything's still going well, we'll kind of connect them to some of our players. So we'll say, hey, let's get you to play some duos with our jungler, or let's bring you in on these scrims. And it's just kind of further getting to know them better and better, seeing how they interact with the team and in a competitive environment. And from there, it's where we're like, okay, you're awesome. You're an incredible person, player, and we think you'd fit in great. Here's what we can do for you, and just kind of finding out what that balance is, what their need and what our need is, and just putting them together.
Awesome. Someone else?
Yeah, going off of that, a big thing that I really like to include is really other than just like the meeting the team and all that sort of thing, a huge part of connecting with a lot of these players is because they're usually young kids, or around the age of early 20s and like 19 years old, is kind of really connecting with them and figuring out what they want to do. What is their goal within esports and then also in the collegiate scene? Because sometimes those are two totally different things. And you want to be able to understand that the program itself needs to be able to mold or at least offer what they really need. Whether or not is the program that they really want, or if your esports goals are the exact same or align in some way, you need to make sure that those align with the player itself. Because sometimes, like Sean said before, you're not going to be the best fit for that specific player. You might not be able to you might not have the program they want, or you might not be. Your program's goals just might be something completely different, and you want to be able to make sure that they find the home that they really want to be able to join.
Yeah, exactly. And I just going on, I mean, I actually just had that this past year as a reference point. Jackson, who is now Array he's at University of St. Thomas. We had him here last year, and I was really, really grateful. And when we brought him in, we were able to do exactly what Alex was saying, get him to see the place, get him to see the university, kind of like assimilate him to what it would be like if he chose to be here, which I think is really, really important. But also the one thing that I wanted to make sure was like, hey, do you want to attend this university? Because you're a student first and foremost, right? Then and that is something that I know that no one on this desk and other colleagues of ours will never forget, because you're a student first and you have to, like, there's these standards that you have to go by. But now, I was like, hey, go do these other ones, even whilst recruiting him. You still want to try to help out them, but focusing more on the question at hand that you posed, Keith, is that I like to make sure if we can get them, and GCU does a great job here with being able to bring in people from like far away and helping them and their parents out to see and get assimilated to what it would be like here at Grand Canyon. And then also just really what Alex was talking about, if we can talk to the parents to make sure that the stated goals that their student has are going to be met, and not only just met, but allow them to empower themselves during their collegiate journey here at Grand Canyon, then that's like the most important thing. Because if they feel that their student, their child is at a place where they are valued and feel safe, then that's, I think, one of the most important parts of recruiting, because you're not just getting a player, you're getting a student who you're trying to empower for the betterment of whether it's just esports or their degree outside of esports to become an esports lover and supporter.
Yeah, and I'm going to sound like a parrot, just echoing everyone. But really, our process starts once we find the folks that we're interested in trying out. It really starts with understanding if Illinois State's going to be a good fit for them. Our incoming freshman class as the university as a whole, not just esports, is a 3.5 GPA. So that's something that we have to take into account, because we do, as a public state institution, have pretty high grade point average requirements, as well as test scores, although most of those have been waived. So we really try to get as holistic of a background of the player as possible, just to make sure, one, we're not going to have any issues getting them through the admissions process, but two, understanding that their goals align, or our degree programs align with their goals. Sean said it, and everyone here thinks the same, but we really treat our players, even our upper tier competitors at our varsity level, as students first. We practice and scrim much less than what I think some of the other top highly competitive teams do, just because we're cognizant and understand that our players are students first, and we understand they're going to play on their own, way more hours than we're scrimming or practicing as a team. So, the last piece of the tryout process, and again, this just depends on the game, is getting them connected with our current rosters and seeing if there are any holes that would work, or if we could bring them in to fill any weaknesses that we have. But the one thing that we try not to do is replace an entire roster, and something moving forward is, as our teams get more competitive, that's something that we're not going to be doing, and we'll be leveraging our club program to be able to take those students who may just be on the cusp of being great and being able to fit into our varsity teams, to be able to still have that developmental pathway, so long as the university is a great fit for them. So even if you get an offer from an institution, but it doesn't have your degree program, or you don't really think it's the right fit for you, just recognize that there are more universities out there who may have competitive varsity programs, but they do have other opportunities for you to be able to get engaged and compete. Maybe not at a scholarship level. If that's really important for you, then obviously you have to take that into account. But there are so many different opportunities available, from broadcast production, event management, and analysis coaching, that you might be able to get experience with while you continue to develop those mechanical play skills.
And kind of bounce off that, you mentioned this earlier, academics are a really important part to any real good program. That's the thing I warn a lot of high school coaches about, is if a recruiter's coming to you to talk about just esports, that's usually a warning sign to me. Or they don't mention the school at all, they just talk about the esports program itself. And I feel like that'd be kind of a common thought across all you guys as well, is where if they're just trying to sell esports, that's a warning sign to me. But on top of that, academics, Kirk mentioned this. This is a thing I've been seeing at some schools where the grade requirement gets kind of lowered for esports players sometimes to recruit someone. So they may be on the cusp and, hey, we'll let this slide a little bit. So much like traditional athletics in certain ways. Is that a case at your institution that you've noticed? Or do you guys stick pretty rigidly to grade standards?
So I just started recruiting my first full recruited roster for this upcoming fall. And I've had students who came up to me and I really wanted to recruit them into a master's program or into a undergrad program here at St. Louis University. Kind of like ISU, our average acceptance rate is about 50 to 60%. So it's not like a crazy high acceptance rate, especially to a lot of these higher programs, or higher competitive programs. So I definitely have had instances in which admissions have literally just straight out told me no. Like there is no chance. We have to adhere to a higher standard at the university, even if they're a very talented player who thinks has a lot of potential. Granted, there are situations in which I can push someone who's on the cusp of maybe they have been out of school for 2 years at this point. And they in high school they had a 2.7 GPA. They didn't take any exams or anything like that, but they did things working during that time. There are certain programs that are addressed for working for people who are full-time working, and they kind of give a little bit of leeway for it. So I usually tend to push those players towards those certain types of programs. They're a little bit more restricted on what degree they can go towards, but I think in their head, they're thinking that they're still earning a degree at a really high competitive school. You're still getting an esports scholarship. On top of that, it's kind of a mix. If a program really wants you, then they're able to be at least a little bit flexible with it.
Yeah, I will say that I have not run into that problem necessarily over here at Grand Canyon. Also, we're not we have varsity teams, but we're still under our club esports, so it's a little bit different under the STEM. So in terms of I don't think that the idea of allowing it to get a better player, depending on each individual student that comes across, is it's fine to have a slight leeway, but if it's such a drastic thing and you're making an exception for one player when you're trying to create a team, I don't think that bodes well for the majority of what you're trying to achieve as a collegiate director or as a coach. Because if you're trying to make exceptions for one player, then you have to make exceptions for the other at the end of the day. And to say that we are holding different players to different standards does not sit right with me. Because I think that there needs to be a baseline that that is almost like a no bards. I will not break this for certain players, and I have that in terms of of a student contract and code of conduct. But we don't have anything necessarily like that here at GCU. But going just across for all esports, I don't think that you should look to continue to break that mold just to maybe have a better player for a possible year or the majority of their collegiate career, because I think setting a standard that everyone has to abide to is more important.
Awesome. And that's kind of what I was looking for, is academics are really important parts. So when students say, oh, I'll get in college on esports scholarship, no, you still have to be a student first. You can't just get straight C's and D's and expect to actually do a lot in large institutions. Now, one of the hardest parts about the high school side of it, now that I can speak on both sides of the aisle now, is I have no idea how to contact college coaches. There's no repository. There's no one knows who the contact is for a lot of these places. So how can high school coaches, one, reach out and find collegiate programs to talk to and find the right person, but two, how can they set their players up to be recruited? Do they have to have them do certain events, do certain kinds of things on certain platforms? So what's your general thoughts on how high school coaches can make your job easier?
Twitter is a LinkedIn in the esports world. I think that's one of the biggest things. Have social media, have some sort of put your name out there, put your face out there. A really big way that I connect to not only other directors, other coaches, but also to potential players is just literally one of the first things I literally do is try to find their gamer tag on Twitter. So especially if you are playing in the amateur leagues that we were talking about previously, it really does help out when I can directly DM you, get your other contact information, emails, all that sort of stuff. It really makes a difference.
And like, I haven't touched my LinkedIn since 2017. Like, it's all on Twitter. Esports is all on Twitter.
Yeah, I actually just updated my LinkedIn profile. It still said I was working for Guitar Center, but so it's been quite a while. But I will echo what Nick said. But for what high school can do to us, I mean, like, if you have a university that is local, just reach out. If they don't have an esports thing there, then that's fine. You know, not to like either bother them, but you make the effort. I know that here, like, there's like super coaches for like some of the high school stuff that they have. I think that's like a play versus thing, if I'm not mistaken. But like, you network, if it's on Twitter, you can hit me in my Discord DMs. I will literally probably answer that at any time. But I also think that if you want to, like, at a high school level, and it goes both ways, you can, hold your own little combines or hold your own little events and invite, local college coaches to come out, kind of like in traditional sports where like they'll have their like day that they do all their like drills for like football or something like that, and all the college coaches will come down and scout. And it can also be the inverse, because with esports we have this availability where we don't necessarily have to travel, but then you can have an online thing for like GCU wants to hold something. I know Arizona State holds a cactus combine for all the Arizona schools and universities, and then it's streamed and everything like that. So just making more ways to have those connections. Like, I think I met Kirk and Nick both online through Twitter, and I met Alex at the Maryville LAN that we just had this past month. So like, you need to find, there are opportunities out there to talk to people and to meet them and to make better connections. You just have to go out there and look for them.
And also, there's a handful of just high school events that are put on. I know it was mentioned earlier, but the eFuse pipeline, I know Intel has handed a few. There's Esports Tower. All these are just groups of events that put on, or groups of people that put on events specifically for high schoolers. And there's all the other specific like state ones, like the Illinois high school esports. But all of these just great ways to kind of get your name out there and just connect with other schools. Anyone that is with part of a university that should be watching some of these games, just to kind of find people, especially if they're within their state or in a nearby one. There's just a lot of different ways to get your name out there and just play in these leagues. Play versus another one that just has some really high level competition that you can kind of look and see, oh, this person's looking for a school and they're right next door. So just playing in competitions and getting your name out there is just another great way to kind of find some universities.
And then kind of building on that is, how can coaches find you guys or other coaches in the college space? Because the hard part with high school is we have our own separate scene. We don't follow any of the collegiate guys by a majority. So a lot of high school coaches don't know who to go to in the first place. Is there a way for them to figure that out?
I can take this one as someone trying to learn and discover how many high schools there truly are supporting esports at some level, not just here, but when I was at Akron in Ohio and trying to figure those out. While the associations are great. I think, Keith, you can attest, even the associations oftentimes don't capture every single high school. There may be some sort of grassroots entity that's there. And a lot of states don't have those associations. So one, I think if you have a state association, getting connected with them, and much like IHSEA and what they're doing, bringing all of us in, they kind of become that contact point. But I think the harder answer, and the one that nobody wants to do, is it's really up to the coaches of these high school teams to do their due diligence and do some research. It's very easy to go to Google and start Googling all the different institutions within your state and esports together to see what pops up. I'll tell you, when I was looking for high schools regionally in areas that don't have high school associations, that's what I did. I spent a week just going through and trying to find if any sort of presence existed or if there was any contact point. And it's always a mixed bag, but I think what you'll find is, specifically at the collegiate level, you'll have a lot more luck seeing a website or a student org page that exists around whatever the esports entity on campus is, and then reaching out and connecting with those coaches, with those directors, whomever they may be. I think one of the things you need to keep in mind as well is understanding where your players are. So I've had plenty of coaches from all around the country. They're essentially high school teachers who are trying to support their kids' vision, and they'll reach out to me about the player. And even if it's a game that we support at a varsity level, they just haven't done their due diligence to see if they truly would fit at our varsity level, saying, hey, this kid's one of the best at our school. I really think that they need to have an opportunity to get in front of you. And rather than approaching it that way, trying to develop a connection first so that you can get connected with that student. The last thing I want to see is when a coach reaches out to me telling me how great his player is, and then I have a direct contact point with that player's profile, and they're like a silver level player, because then I become the bad guy to reach out to the student and say, well, I'm sorry, you're not to the competitive profile of the team that we're looking for. And then the coach at that instant had gotten the player's hopes up. So a lot of it just really comes back down to the coach, the director, whatever their position is at the high school, to do that base level research, while some of these tools, like I think it's like Next Level Scholastic Athlete or something like that, they're creating an esports recruitment directory. Obviously the pipeline with eFuse, they're creating some directory pieces. So while those tools continue to develop, it's still a lot of legwork for the ones that are trying to advocate for their students.
Anyone else want to add to that?
I think Kirk kind of hit it right there, because as he said, the only thing that we probably all didn't want to say, but he said it was, it's upon you to make that effort and to reach out. I know that, as some people in the session are saying, it's cumbersome to try to get through all the hoops and ropes that is collegiate esports, and getting to the right person to send you to the right person to then send you to us. But it's really upon you. And then to go off what we just talked about in the previous topic, Twitter, it's everywhere. You can probably just type in ISU Redbirds, and then you'll see like this beautiful picture of David just right there. And then it's not that hard.
I don't know if beautiful is the word I would use, but I appreciate that.
It's such just an interconnected network and even if like you don't know of the school in your state, you can find contact for another coach somewhere else. They can likely get you in contact with someone. Like they can likely get in contact with someone local to you, or find another school, because I know we all want to recruit everyone and get as many players as we can. At the same time, we're trying to grow the space as a whole, and any way we can help someone else is fine. And like TJ put it, it's just everyone knows everyone. So just talk with a coach, and they can find you more coaches who can find you more and more and more and more.
So I think Dalton is trying to point out they're spending significant effort putting a database together of all contact info of colleges in Illinois and adjacent states, and also found the next year to have 1/3 of them already inaccurate. I do have to mention esports is always ever changing. This space is so new that not every college right now, especially in Illinois, especially in Missouri, all around the Midwest, a lot of these schools that you think have programs are probably only club programs at this point. They're not even at that varsity level yet. The person that heads that club is probably still a student, or someone that's like not employed by the university, or is only affiliated in a part-time position or something like that. With that being said, that's why it's a little bit harder to find like a huge name like David, like me, at all of these universities. I know at my schools like Lindenwood, right nearby St. Louis, SIUE, all these other schools have different esports aspects or different esports components, but they're not like a full-fledged varsity roster that has one person spearing the entire initiative. So keep that in mind when looking towards it, and don't get too frustrated about that sort of thing. When you have like the household name schools, they most of the time will have their director or whoever heads it in their directory already. You can literally just put it in the name and you'll find the person. I bet Keith is already in the system. He's been working for only a couple months, so like
couple weeks, man.
couple weeks. But just so don't be too frustrated. Just keep working on it. If you need help, go ask one of us. Like we're here for you. I can literally send our contact information into the chat. If you want to know a name or someone that's at a nearby college, we'll help you. We'll let you know.
Yeah. If you guys want to do that right now, actually drop probably your Discord and Twitter in the chat, and then anyone who has questions for the Q&A, like drop questions you have at any time. That's like the key thing. Just drop questions at any time. So anyone has any question they want to ask?
He dropped the whole link, David.
Oh, jeez.
I need to rebrand it fast.
Got to make it easy, right? Need those follows.
I know. The social climb.
Sean, you want to explain OPTSM fan?
No, I don't really want to explain it.
Because I love at the land that you had to introduce us. Hi, I'm Sean.
No, you want to talk about yeah, exactly, Sean, and then you say that, and then it's OPTSM fan, and then Chiu's player right now, Strumpus, would not refer to me as anything except for OPTSM fan when he would approach me like, "Hey, Mr. OPTSM fan, how are you doing, Mr. OPTSM fan?" Is the most. It needs to rebrand fast. I made Twitch long time ago, had no idea what I was doing. It stuck. I never thought to change. That's the amazing story, and we're here 9 years later or whatever it might be.
It was just so funny to watch you introduce yourself to so many people. You say Sean from GCU, they kind of like, huh? You say OPTSM veteran, goes, oh, you're the guy who follows me on Twitter who I have no idea who you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, I'm glad someone had enjoyment out of that. So that's for sure.
Any other Q&A stuff, anyone? I know we were kind of recorded, so we'll show it later. But I think one of the final topics to wrap up on is, we have until 2:15, so let's go on that soapbox then. What do you think coaches should be looking for when looking at programs in general? What should they be looking for as, like, here's a sign of a great program, what's a sign of, like, I should avoid this? So what should a coach look for when they're trying to go out and hunt for programs to send their players to? Because in the end, all the coaches in the high school space want to just get their players to the next level and find them a space in collegiate, but they don't know what they're looking for necessarily.
So I can provide some insight into, at least my thoughts. I don't think there are any right answers. When I'm a student, right, when I was looking to go to college, even though I played athletics in college, one of the first things that I looked at were the metrics for the university. So one, to see if they had what I was interested in. Obviously, if they don't, probably not going to be a good fit. But I think looking at things like graduation rate and then the other supportive services that a university can provide a student, not just from a gamer perspective, is really important. And oftentimes a high school esports coach can consult their high school guidance counselors, because they're always a bit more in tune, at least with what's locally or regionally available and the options and opportunities that it offers. I will say that there are some programs around the country that I think are in collegiate esports for the wrong reason, and they're more so just trying to bring in some of the top talent, the best players, without any regard to the student experience as well as academics and some of those other pieces. But those are kind of hard to flesh out, right? I have some of my own opinions on what those programs are, as I'm sure does everyone else on this call. But just asking, I think some of your local or regional or state directors who have proven to be a bit more involved, or who you potentially have students who have matriculated into, just to talk a little bit more about what the program looks like. Is it truly there designed for student success, to create that inclusive community that, our students crave when they're coming to college? Or is it just 5 guys in a computer lab for 30 hours a week playing a video game?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the other things that wasn't necessarily mentioned there, but I definitely agree, especially with some of the bad actors that are currently in esports. It's still very, young, Wild West kind of thing. If you have the opportunity, either as a coach or a student, to go to the university and you can see the amount of student engagement, like how Nick was saying about how most of them are just club side, I think the more student engagement and how big their club is, that's not always about numbers, but quality. But if you can have like first hands-on experience to then be able to recommend to your students that are looking for places like that, to like have firsthand experience about what that club was like, and seeing how the club interacts through, like, maybe they have like an open Smash tournament or something, you come play for whatever. I think that firsthand experience is so incredibly valuable, because especially for these student-led orgs that have turned into varsity programs through that, you understand that it wasn't just like someone at the top end or someone coming in out of nowhere being like, we should do esports. Okay, sounds great. Or a money grab or whatever it might be, like Kirk was talking about, that it's a passion project that was fueled for the right reasons and through the right chains. And obviously, at the end of the day, as we said from the beginning, so just to kind of put a bow on it, it's all about the students and about empowering them. And if you give them that power, which I feel like at GCU, they do a really good job here, but even before I got here, and I just want to continue that process, is that allowing the students to be in control and make their own destiny, but also just trying to guide them down the right path. So if you can go reach out, and it goes back to what David was saying about, making sure you're the one to go and find these places, that if you can have that firsthand experience and then come back to your students with, or even just for yourself, that you'll have so much more confidence in being able to like just understand the scene a little bit more.
Awesome. Anything else to add, guys? Any shameless plugs you want to make?
I guess we can all just plug our universities' Twitters or social medias, I guess, because I think I will have to say every single one of these individuals and their programs are all great programs. I've definitely been following it ever since I've came on the come up in the past 2 years. So, but I'll go first. So if I'll plug myself first, so it doesn't look as too much shilling. But you can follow me at I put my Twitter in the chat, but you can also follow St. Louis University at @SLU_esports there on Twitter.
Awesome. Okay, plugs, Alex.
Yeah, you can follow us at Esports BSU or twitch.tv/Boise State. We do a lot of broadcasting. And yeah, just hope to see you all. And yeah, like everyone mentions, if you have any questions for anyone, just throw them out, whether it's here or on Twitter or Discord, and we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. David?
Yeah, we're Redbird Esports on just about every type of media that exists. Google's your friend in that instance. The one thing I will add about our program specifically is at a varsity level, so scholarship, we support League of Legends, Overwatch, and Rocket League. But we do have opportunities for you to compete on behalf of the university in just about any and every game title that exists. We leverage our clubs as kind of that developmental area as we look at more universities starting to onboard some of these other off titles to officially support them here at ISU as well. I will say we have some really highly competitive teams. We've placed as high as 2 in Rainbow Six Siege in the country, losing only to Akron, the team that I helped to recruit while I was there.
Yikes.
Valorant, as well as Call of Duty and Smite, all have extremely, extremely competitive teams here at our club level.
Awesome. Then Sean?
Yeah, esports_GCUs, where you can find them at Twitter. I posted my Twitter and my Discord there. You can reach out to me. I'm going to give 2 shout outs to some ISU people, actually. Isaiah Perez over there and Joe Storino, former alum over there. Love both those guys. Those are my brothers in fraternity. But yeah, just reach out to us. and just let us know anything that we can do to help you out, because all 5 of us here on here, we want to see the scene grow and flourish, and as David mentioned, for the right reasons.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And we'll call it there a minute or two early so I can get to the next session I have to go to. Okay, thank you so much,
Busy
guys.
man.
Perfect.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
So long.